Today's episode of Car Space is brought to you by mirrors. Make sure you check them before you change lanes, otherwise the person next to you could be hit. And now, the Car Space Podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to Car Space. So today I'm going to talk about a vehicle that I recently saw featured, sort of featured, on a Netflix show called Murderville. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I had never heard of the vehicle before, so I started researching into it, and it's a super sweet looking vehicle, I think. It's called the Dodge Rampage. So the Dodge Rampage was very similar to the Chevy El Camino in that it is a car-based kind of truck, sort of. So is it a Trar or is it a Cruck? I'm not really sure. But the Dodge Rampage was made from 1982 until 1984, short lifespan. So a bit of a backstory before we get into the details of the actual vehicle. So this part is quoted from allpar.com, is a bit of a backstory kind of going into it. It's a really quick one. And this is a direct quote. The first Rampage, though, was created by a custom body shop under the direction of Hank Carlini, Lee Iacocca's special assignment man on products. Hank came from Ford with Lee and was in Lee's Friday Night Poker Club. When Lee saw the Rampage model, he said, "Do it." End quote. So the Rampage was built off the same platform as the Dodge Charger of that time, which was the L-body platform. The L-body was also the chassis that they used for the Plymouth Turismo, the Dodge Omni, and the Plymouth TC3. It was a front-wheel drive truck, with a fire-breathing 2.2-liter inline-4 putting out a tire-shredding 84 horsepower. In the first year of production, that tire scorcher was mated to either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic. But in 1983, it was updated with a 5-speed manual. As far as suspension goes, the front suspension was based on the Omni, while the rear was actually specific to the Rampage in that it had leaf springs, which made it a true half-ton. And it could carry 1,145 pounds. That's the name. A ton is 1,000 pounds. Half a ton. Just over half a ton. In 1984, the Rampage was actually facelifted to look more like the Charger that it was semi-based on, and included new headlights and a new grille design. Unfortunately, that would be the end of the road for the Rampage, as it was discontinued following the 1984 model year. So the Rampage was actually available in a base trim and a sport trim. The sport naming was actually changed to 2.2 trim level in 1983, although all Rampages technically had a 2.2-liter engine. The sport trim was actually shared with the Plymouth as the Scamp Gt. The Plymouth also came in a base model, both of which added a fake hood scoop, a tachometer, and fancy stripes for just a $500 upcharge. The Scamp was only available in the 1983 model year, and that would explain the dip in sales for the Rampage that year as it compared to the 82 and 84 models, although it was never a big seller, hence the short run. It actually topped out at 17,636 units in the initial 1982 model year run. The Rampage did actually have some internal competition from the Mitsubishi-sourced Ram 50 compact truck. I actually knew a kid who had one of these when I was in high school. Very small. Like, I had a Dakota, and it was smaller than my Dakota. The Ram 50 had a more traditional frame and rear-wheel drive, and it cost about the same as the Rampage. From what I read, the Ram 50 started lower but ended higher based on the options. But the Rampage actually sold in roughly about half the numbers of the Ram 50. Neither one of which coming anywhere near the full-size Ram, but both actually outsold the Ram Charger, which is something I would love to do an episode on, because I thought the Ram Charger was really cool, and then it just kind of disappeared fairly quickly. So there actually was a Shelby version of the Rampage that made it into California only. There was a little bit of dispute over what the name was, but it eventually, so some people called it the Direct Connection Rampage, and some people call it the California Shelby version. It actually came out in 1986, 2 years after the Rampage had actually been killed off. It came with several performance goodies on it, including a new carburetor, valves and lifters, a Mopar intake, and a new exhaust, among a couple other things. And the California Shelby model, or direct connection model, was actually said to put out 99 horsepower. So finally, the name Rampage actually came back briefly as a concept model in 2006, which was a truck concept using an unibody architecture with stow and go from the minivans, and also had front wheel drive, and the engine bay apparently could have handled a Hemi. It was actually said to be designed for truck. It was a truck designed for people who didn't like trucks. Obviously, it never went into production, but I think the demographic is there, being that there's some success with the new Ford Maverick. So there you go. That's a brief history lesson on the Dodge Rampage and the Plymouth Scamp. It was short-lived, but I think it was pretty cool. What do you think? Do you think they should bring it back? I think they should. So just a quick note before we wrap up here. I know it's a quick episode. I just formed a Facebook group for the podcast, but honestly, it's for anyone that loves cars. So you can come join and invite your friends to join as well. I just want to kind of grow a community of people who love cars and not just specific to one model or another. If it helps grow the podcast, great. But really, I just kind of, it'd be cool to be able to share different vehicles with people who appreciate different vehicles. So with that, everyone have a great week and drive safe.